Stop what you are doing. Let this sink in. Chosen one, what they did to you was not an argument, not a misunderstanding, not even a conflict. It was a staged trial with no judge, no evidence, and no chance for you to speak. That's the reality of what you faced. They gathered like a mob in the marketplace, pointed fingers before questions, and shouted verdicts before truth had a chance to breathe. And here's the hook: you were put on trial for the crime of being innocent. That's the twist. Not guilty of wrongdoing, but guilty of standing tall in your light when they wanted shadows. Now here's a cheeky reality check. Guilty people need evidence. Jealous people only need volume. And they were loud because they were empty. If this hits your spirit, press like and subscribe so this message finds the ones who need it. Drop 7 sentiment in the comments if you're standing for truth. And if you feel called, bless the mission with a super thanks. Because exposing lies in public isn't free. It takes time, energy, and courage. Now breathe, let's step in together. They didn't build a courtroom, they built a circus. Every shout was a performance. Every accusation a mask hiding their own rot. You didn't just walk into false judgment. You walked into theater, and the stage lights were pointed at you because your presence revealed what they were desperate to hide. That's the disgusting part. Your name became their shield. They hurled it forward so no one would look behind them. Where the real filth was dripping, chosen one. The truth about mobs is this: they never move from facts. They move from fear. They were not united in proof. They were united in panic. You scared them because your very existence called their lies into question. And instead of admitting it, they shouted louder, hoping the noise could bury your silence. But silence from the innocent is heavier than words from the guilty. People may cheer in the moment, but their hearts know when justice has been betrayed. Look closer at what happened. They did not invite you to speak. They did not weigh your side of the story. They condemned you because condemnation is easier than confession. They held up your name like a scapegoat and prayed the crowd would never ask why they needed one. But here's the irony: they can't escape. The more they accused you, the more they revealed themselves. Every false charge was a confession dressed in reverse. And while it stung, while it ripped through your peace like shards of glass, the deeper truth is this: false courts collapse under their own noise. They can throw mud, but mud cannot change the diamond it lands on. They can parade in masks, but masks melt when the heat of truth comes close. They can drag you into their theater, but an audience knows when they've been tricked. The people will remember. Even if it takes time, even if it comes slowly, the human spirit recoils from injustice. So hold steady. What they built was disgusting, yes, but also fragile. Their voices were many, but their foundation was hollow. And when the dust clears, chosen one, the only figure still standing on that stage will be you, the innocent, the vindicated, the one they could not bury under lies. Picture this clearly. Chosen one, you once broke bread with them. You opened your doors, shared your table, gave what you had even when your own plate wasn't full. Yet when the time came, those same mouths you fed turned into wolves gnawing on your name. What happened to you wasn't a disagreement, it was a feast of cannibals. They gathered around your reputation as if it were their dinner, tearing at it piece by piece, hungry not because they needed truth, but because your light exposed their lack. And isn't that the most disgusting part? They didn't strike because you wronged them. They struck because you reminded them of what they could never be. You didn't see it at first. The laughter around the table, the smiles you thought were genuine, they were rehearsals. Hidden in those chuckles were sharpened knives. The betrayal didn't start when they spoke against you. It began long before, in their envy, in their secret calculations, in the way they sat across from you and studied your strength like vultures circling before a fall. And when the moment came, they didn't hesitate. They didn't confront you. They devoured you behind your back, chewing your name in private conversations until nothing but fragments were left for the world to see. It's called cannibalism of the spirit. They thought by swallowing your identity, they could steal your power. But here's the truth they don't want to admit: eating a diamond never makes your teeth shine. They feasted on your image, but the taste burned their tongues because innocence cannot be digested by corruption. That's why, even after their feeding frenzy, they're still hungry, still restless, still whispering your name at every chance. They didn't consume you, they consumed themselves. Think about this. The people who twist your story never realize they're writing their own obituary. Every lie they told was a mouthful of poison that will eventually choke them. Every rumor they spread was a bite too large for their conscience to swallow. That's why they look so desperate now. They're full of your name, stuffed with the weight of their own deceit, and still starving for peace. Because peace doesn't come from devouring the innocent, it comes from facing the mirror. And they can't do it. Chosen one, I need you to see the poetry in this. While they sat at their cannibal feast, gnawing at what they thought was your end, you were being preserved. Your essence was untouchable. Your truth was beyond their reach. They could chew your name in circles, but they could never touch the soul that carried it. That's why you're still standing. That's why, even now, your presence lingers like a fragrance they can't wash off. They ate, but they never satisfied their hunger. Because what they wanted wasn't your story, it was your spirit. And your spirit cannot be stolen. And here's the twist that turns their feast into their funeral: the crowd is watching. At first, only they joined in, curious, entertained, tasting the drama like crumbs on a plate. But slowly, they began to gag. Slowly, they began to see that the feast was grotesque, that you were never the meal, you were the proof of how far envy will go when left unchallenged. And disgust always finds its way back to the source. So let them eat. Let them gorge themselves on rumors, on lies, on the illusion of power. Every bite is another scar on their own souls, another reminder to the world of just how vile desperation can look. Because you, chosen one, were never food for them. You were the flame that revealed who at the table was truly starving. Look at how they move. Chosen one. They walk through life as if they're kings and queens of truth, but every step is hollow because their faces are covered in paper masks. Thin disguises, flimsy fronts, masks painted with smiles that never reach the eyes. At first, those masks looked convincing. The crowd couldn't see the cracks. They spoke with confidence, laughed with ease, and their lies seemed stitched so tight that no one dared to question. But paper can't survive fire, and the fire of truth was always flickering in your presence. That's why they feared you, because your very existence threatened to set their parade ablaze. Think about it. What they built wasn't identity. It was origami, delicate folds of deception, held together with cheap glue. They thought if they wore it long enough, people would mistake it for skin. But here's the thing about paper: when the rain comes, it melts. When the heat rises, it burns. And when the wind shifts, it flies away, leaving nothing but shreds. That's why you're seeing them panic now. Their parade is unraveling in public. The colors are running, the ink is bleeding, and the masks they crafted are dripping off their faces for everyone to see. Chosen one, you didn't even have to expose them. That's the beauty of truth. It doesn't need a lawyer. It doesn't need a campaign. All it needs is time, and time is what has betrayed them. The longer they spoke, the more contradictions appeared. The longer they pretended, the more the crowd noticed the performance. People started whispering, "Why do they talk about you so much? Why is your name always in their mouth?" And suddenly, the mask wasn't hiding anything. It was highlighting everything. Their obsession became the evidence. Their parade became a confession. But let's be clear, the paper mask parade wasn't just for the world. It was also for themselves. They needed those masks to forget their own shame. They needed costumes to convince themselves they were untouchable. Yet the irony is cruel. They built an entire performance to protect their image. And now the performance itself is what's destroying them. Every time they lift their voice against you, the mask slips a little more. Every attempt to cover you in mud leaves fingerprints on their own face. And here's the deeper truth: masks are exhausting. Carrying an identity that isn't yours, maintaining a story that was never true, takes energy. That's why they're tired. That's why their voices crack. That's why their smiles don't shine the way they used to. Living in paper skin drains the soul. Meanwhile, you standing uncovered, scarred maybe, but real glow brighter because authenticity doesn't drain, it restores. So watch them parade, chosen one. Watch as they march with their hollow masks, convinced the crowd is cheering. Watch as they trip over their own lies, as the rain of truth soaks through their disguises, as the ink runs into the streets. Soon, they won't just lose their masks, they'll lose the illusion of control they built around them. And when that happens, the world won't see you as the villain they painted. They'll see you as the diamond they tried to hide under paper scraps. The mask parade is ending. The audience is leaving. And when the stage is bare, the only face left standing in the light will be yours unmasked, unbroken, undeniable, chosen one. Let's tell the truth, every word they hurled at you wasn't about you at all. It was about them. Their accusations were mirrors turned outward, reflections they couldn't bear to face in themselves. When they said you were arrogant, it was because pride had eaten them alive. When they said you were dishonest, it was because lies were dripping from their own mouths. When they called you dangerous, it was because they knew you were the one person who could expose the danger they carried within. They didn't speak truth. They built an altar of projection, stacking every stone of their guilt and laying it at your feet, praying the crowd would never notice the shrine was theirs, not yours. Look at how it played out. Instead of confession, they chose projection. Instead of cleaning their own house, they pointed at your window. This is the twisted survival strategy of cowards. They vomit their shadows onto the innocent, so the stench doesn't give them away. And isn't that the most disgusting part? They knew the crowd was too lazy to check the facts, too eager for drama to dig deeper. So they handed them a scapegoat, you. They turned their shame into your story, but projection is fragile. It doesn't take long for people to notice the cracks. Think about how mirrors work. When you smash one in anger, the shards don't wound the reflection, they wound the hand that struck it. That's what's happening now. Every word they spoke has circled back, slicing into the very skin that launched it. They accused you of betrayal, and suddenly it's their alliances breaking. They accused you of lies, and now their own messages, their own receipts, are surfacing. They accused you of being dangerous, but the danger was always their fear of being unmasked. Chosen one, you never had to prove yourself because innocence doesn't need defense. Projection unravels by itself. All you had to do was stay still long enough for the spotlight to shift. And now it is. The crowd that once nodded is starting to ask questions. Why does every accusation they throw look more like a confession? Why does the dirt they fling feel like the dirt on their own hands? Those questions are the beginning of the end. Understand this projection is not strength, it's desperation. It's the last trick of people who know they've been seen, but refuse to admit it. They thought that if they threw their darkness onto you, they could stay clean. But light doesn't lie. The more they projected, the more transparent they became. And you stood there, scarred maybe, but clear. The difference was obvious. So don't waste your breath defending what never belonged to you. Those weren't your accusations. They were their confessions in disguise. Those weren't your flaws. They were shadows they tried to hang on your shoulders. And when the world finally sees it, the altar they built will collapse on top of them, crushing the very image they worked so hard to protect. The truth is this projection is always temporary, but authenticity is eternal. And you, chosen one, have never needed to project because you've always carried the one thing they lacked the courage to be real. Chosen one. Imagine this long before they ever attacked you in public. They were rehearsing in the dark, whispering scripts in secret corners, practicing lines in low voices, choreographing your downfall like a play they were certain would earn them applause. They built props out of lies, costumes out of envy, and stage lights out of manipulation. To them, your pain was entertainment. Your reputation was their stage set, and their audience was a crowd hungry for drama. But here's the twist: they forgot the audience wasn't blind. People can sense when a performance is forced. People can smell when the script is rotten. And no matter how much smoke they filled the theater with, truth has a way of seeping through the cracks in the curtains. They wanted you to be the villain in their story. They painted your face with shadows, hoping the crowd would hiss when you walked on stage. But shadows don't erase light, they only prove where the light is. And while they hid behind curtains, pulling strings, your authenticity stood there unmasked, radiating something they could never counterfeit. That's why the theater is collapsing. The audience they thought they controlled is now disgusted, not by you, but by them. They came expecting truth and left realizing they had paid tickets for a lie. Think about it. What they staged was never confrontation, it was choreography. Every rumor planted, every story rehearsed, every tear they faked in public was a scene rehearsed 100 times in private. They were actors, and you were their unwilling prop. But here's the thing about theater eventually. The play ends, the curtains fall, the crowd goes home, and when the lights go out, the masks come off. That's when the real story begins. You might ask yourself, why go this far? Why build an entire theater just to smear your name because your presence was a truth too large to ignore? They couldn't argue with facts, so they built fiction. They couldn't fight your reality, so they staged illusion. And the most disgusting part is they thought the crowd would never know the difference. But people aren't as blind as the enemy believes. They can spot when tears are rehearsed, when outrage is scripted, when pain is counterfeit. And when they realize it, the applause doesn't last, it curdles into boos. Chosen one. Let this give you peace. You don't have to fight actors. You don't have to wrestle with shadows. Let them keep performing. Let them bow after every false scene. Because the truth is not in their script, it's in your life. And no stage, no curtain, no spotlight can change that. The theater of shadows is crumbling because the audience is waking up. They are whispering in the seats now, not about you, but about the performers. Why are they so desperate? Why does every scene feel overdone? Why does the villain look more real in them than in the one they accused? These whispers are louder than applause, and they are spreading. The actors don't know it yet, but their performance has already turned into their downfall. And when the curtains finally fall, chosen one, you will not need to argue or shout. The stage itself will betray them. The lies will collapse under the weight of their own performance. And the world will see you not as the villain they scripted, but as the truth that outlasted the play. Chosen one. Here is the irony they never planned for every move they made to silence. You only became proof of what was already written over your life. They thought their attacks would erase your voice, but instead, those very attacks echoed as confirmation that you were carrying something divine. The harder they tried to convince the world you were nothing, the louder heaven whispered that you were chosen. They became your unwilling witnesses, your unwilling advertisers, your unwilling choir shouting the truth they swore they could bury. Think about it. Prophecy doesn't always arrive in thunder or lightning. Sometimes it arrives through resistance. Every lie they told, every scheme they launched, every whisper they spread, those were signals to the world that you were more significant than anyone had realized. Why else would so many spend so much energy on trying to erase one life? No empire wastes its armies on someone irrelevant. Their obsession exposed the truth. You were the prophecy they feared, the disruption they couldn't control, the living oracle their actions accidentally confirmed. And isn't that the most beautiful twist? They thought they were writing your ending, but they were actually writing your scripture. They thought they were burying you in silence, but every stone they threw became an altar. Look at history, every chosen figure attacked. The hardest was the one carrying the greatest message. Their persecution wasn't punishment, it was proof. Proof to you, proof to the crowd, proof to anyone with eyes to see. You weren't under attack because you were weak, you were under attack because you were prophecy in motion. You need to hear this, they wanted your downfall to be the final word. But what they did was amplify your beginning. Their lies didn't erase your truth, they broadcast it. Their whispers didn't silence you, they made people curious. Even those who believed them at first are now looking closer, wondering why you, of all people, were targeted so relentlessly. And in their wonder, the prophecy is revealed. The same mouths that tried to devour you ended up spreading your name wider than you ever could have alone. Chosen one, don't miss this when you refused to bow. When you kept walking even under the weight of slander. You fulfilled the very words they mocked. They thought they were dismantling your calling, but they became the instruments that tuned it louder. Every setback they designed was the echo of heaven saying, yes, this one. Yes, this life. Yes, this truth. Their hatred became your seal. Their obsession became your stamp. They turned themselves into unwilling oracles, speaking against you but proving you with every syllable. So let them talk. Let them scheme. Let them choke on their obsession. Because whether they know it or not, they are serving a higher script. They cannot cancel what was written before time. They cannot erase the lines carved into your destiny. And the more they resist, the clearer the prophecy shines, not just for you, but for everyone watching. In the end, chosen one, they will realize too late that the very storm they raised against you was the trumpet announcing your arrival. And that's the destiny they could never outrun, the oracle they accidentally confirmed with their own hands. Chosen one. Let's name it plainly. What terrified them most was not your power, not your words, not even your rise. It was the reflection you held up to them. You became a mirror, and every time they looked at you, they saw the pieces of themselves they had buried, the rot they had painted over, the cowardice they had disguised as strength. Instead of facing it, they did what cowards always do. They tried to smash the mirror. But here's the twist they never saw coming. When you shatter a mirror, you don't erase the reflection, you multiply it. Every shard still reflects the truth. And the one who swung the hammer is the one who bleeds. They swung hard, didn't they? With rumors, with whispers, with character assassinations. They gathered all their strength to fracture the image of you standing in truth. But every blow only made your presence more undeniable. They thought destroying your name would erase what you revealed. Yet every attempt scattered the evidence wider. Now, instead of one reflection, there are hundreds of people everywhere noticing the same truth, recognizing the same injustice, whispering the same questions. Why does their story sound more like confession than accusation? Here's what they didn't count on. Mirrors don't create flaws. They reveal them. So when they tried to accuse you, all they did was broadcast their own insecurities. When they called you arrogant, they exposed their own hunger for control. When they painted you as dishonest, their own contradictions slipped into the open. When they claimed you were dangerous, it wasn't because you threatened peace, it was because you threatened their illusion. The more they fought to smash the mirror, the more obvious their reflection became. Chosen one, understand the depth of this moment. You never asked to be their mirror. You didn't volunteer to expose what they were hiding. All you did was exist, walk in integrity, carry the truth etched into your spirit. That was enough to terrify them. Because you can't negotiate with a mirror, you can't bribe it, can't flatter it, can't silence it. A mirror doesn't lie, and that's what they couldn't stand. And here's the prophecy wrapped inside their rage. Every cut they aimed at you has turned back on them. They are the ones bleeding, not you. They are the ones scrambling. Because the image they see now is not yours. It's their own face twisted by envy, by deceit, by fear. They wanted to destroy the glass, but all they've done is cut their own hands until they can no longer pretend to hold control. So let them rage. Let them keep swinging. Because the harder they fight the reflection, the sharper it becomes. Every denial, every smear, every frantic attempt to silence you is another shard catching the light. And when enough shards glitter, the crowd can no longer ignore what they're seeing. The mask slips, the truth shines, the mirror remains. Chosen one, you don't need revenge. You don't need to explain. You only need to stand still in your reflection. For while they bleed themselves trying to shatter the truth, you are becoming sharper, clearer, more undeniable than ever. And that's the judgment they cannot escape, the mirror they could never smash. Chosen one. There was a time you thought no one saw you. You believed the attacks were happening in silence, behind closed doors, where whispers could not be traced and lies could not be undone. But here's the truth, they were never as hidden as they thought. People were watching, quiet eyes, silent hearts, bystanders who stayed still at first out of fear or uncertainty. Yet silence doesn't last forever. What begins as stillness eventually rumbles. And now those witnesses are shaking the ground beneath your enemy's feet like an earthquake that can't be stopped. This is the irony. They thought their strength was in numbers, but their downfall is in witnesses. Every room they whispered in, someone remembered. Every message they sent, someone saved. Every rumor they spread, someone noticed the desperation behind it. And just like tectonic plates pressing against one another, that pressure has been building quietly for months, years even. Then suddenly, without warning, the shift happens. The ground cracks, the walls tremble, and what was hidden beneath the surface roars into the open. That's what's happening now. The witnesses are no longer silent. Their rumble has become a roar. Imagine this: an entire building standing tall, arrogant, certain it will last forever. But beneath it, the ground is alive. Beneath it, the earth is moving. At first, no one sees the fault lines forming, but then the quake comes. That's your story. The lies they stacked like bricks, the false image they built like walls, all of it is shaking. And the cracks aren't coming from your hands. They're coming from the witnesses they underestimated. Chosen one. Understand this: you were never alone in that storm. People saw, people knew, people stayed quiet, waiting, watching, calculating. Not everyone believed the false reports. Not everyone swallowed the poison. There were those who sat back, studied the patterns, and when the evidence became undeniable, they couldn't keep still. And when the witnesses rise, the mob loses its power. Because now the story isn't just your voice against theirs, it's the collective weight of outrage pressing down on the lie. And isn't it poetic? The same crowd that once turned against you is now turning against them. Fury doesn't disappear, it changes direction. At first, it was aimed at you, the scapegoat they offered. But now, fury has found its true target. The people are disgusted not by your existence, but by the cruelty of what was done to you. The witnesses are outraged because they know what it feels like to be misrepresented, to be crushed under false judgment. You're let the earthquake come, let the witnesses rise. Every step they take shakes the walls your enemies thought would never fall. And when the dust clears, the stage they built will be rubble, and your truth will be standing untouched in the middle of it all. Chosen one. Never forget, you don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes your silence is the loudest proof, and sometimes the witnesses carry your vindication further than your own words ever could. Their earthquake is your justice. Their outrage is your vindication. Their voices are the sound of the ground splitting open beneath the feet of those who tried to bury you alive. Chosen one, they thought the wounds would define you. They thought every cut, every betrayal, every public humiliation would leave you disfigured, unrecognizable, crawling in shame. But what they didn't know is that scars do not weaken you, they crown you. Every scar on your spirit has been threaded into something regal, something holy, something no one else can wear. Your crown was not bought in gold or forged in metal. It was sewn from the very marks they left behind, and that's what terrifies them most. Think about scars for a moment. They are the proof that pain came but could not stay. They are the evidence that what tried to kill you failed. They are permanent signatures of survival, reminders that you walked through fire and walked out alive. And while they hoped you would hide them, cover them, deny them, you've done the opposite. You've worn them openly, turning each scar into a jewel, each wound into a piece of armor. Now, when people look at you, they don't see weakness. They see a story that couldn't be erased. The disgusting part is that your enemies thought pain would silence you. They thought humiliation would shrink you. They thought betrayal would bury you. But pain became your teacher. Humiliation became your platform. Betrayal became your blueprint. What they tried to use against you, heaven used for you. Every knife that cut you was another thread in your robe. Every whisper that mocked you was another stitch in your crown. And the more they hurt you, the heavier your crown became until it gleamed with glory they could never steal. Chosen one, scars are not just survival, they are transformation. They change the way you walk, the way you see, the way you breathe. They etch wisdom into your bones, discernment into your eyes, fire into your heart. The you that stands today is not the same person who was attacked. You are sharper now. You are wiser now. You are untouchable in ways you never were before, and that's why they can't stand you. Because the very suffering they inflicted has produced a version of you they cannot defeat. Look closely at history. Every chosen one crowned with destiny wore scars as proof. The prophets, the warriors, the leaders, they all carried marks of battles survived. You are in that lineage now. You carry the same signature, the same unshakable testimony. And those who tried to mark you with shame have ended up engraving you with honor. Here's the paradox: the crown they tried to deny you is visible now because of them. The world sees it. People see how much you endured, how much you refused to break, how much you still shine. And in their disgust at what was done to you, they can't help but respect the royalty that rose from it. So let them stare, let them whisper, let them gnash their teeth at the sight of you walking with a crown stitched from every scar they gave you. Because what they intended for your destruction has become the emblem of your reign. You are not broken, you are enthroned, and the weight on your head is not shame, it is sovereignty. The scars they cursed are the jewels that now sparkle as proof you were chosen all along. Chosen one, the stage they built for your downfall has become the platform for their exposure. Every trap they laid, every whisper they planted, every scheme they wove was fuel for a reversal that only heaven could orchestrate. What they called victory was nothing more than a countdown to collapse. And what they mocked as your ending was the universe quietly setting up your beginning. They thought they were moving pieces in their favor, but they never realized they were just pawns in a cosmic game already rigged in your direction. Think about the irony. They stood over you, laughing, certain the mud they threw would stick forever. But mud dries, it flakes, it falls away. And when it does, the diamond beneath shines brighter because of the contrast. Their lies didn't bury you, they polished you. Their slander didn't erase you, it framed you. And now people can't stop staring at the glow that rose from the ashes of what was meant to be your ruin. This reversal is not subtle, it is loud, public, undeniable. The same mouths that cheered your supposed failure are now silent, choking on the dust of your rising. The same crowd that once turned its back is now furious, not at you, but at the ones who dared to attack innocence. The outrage that once condemned you is now crushing them. That is the cosmic reversal energy flipped, tables turned, justice served not by your hands but by forces greater than you. Chosen one, destiny always moves like this. The higher the betrayal, the greater the reversal, the deeper the wound, the brighter the healing, the louder the lie, the stronger the truth when it breaks through. They underestimated the laws of the universe, the ones that don't bend for arrogance or deceit. What you sow, you reap, and they sowed poison in the soil of your life, never realizing the roots would curl back into their own ground. Now they're reaping their own harvest, and the field they planted with malice has become their prison. But here's where it gets glorious. This reversal is not just about vindication, it's about revelation. The world is watching. They are seeing the cracks in the mass, the unraveling of the play, the shaking of the walls. They are realizing that what happened to you wasn't just personal, it was a lesson for everyone. A lesson in how truth cannot be killed, how innocence cannot be erased, how chosen ones cannot be defeated. You became the living prophecy of a universal law: you cannot destroy what was destined to rise. And so here you stand, not just surviving, not just proving them wrong, but embodying the shift itself. Their hands are empty, their schemes are dust, their words are ashes, And you are crowned, elevated, unstoppable. That is the cosmic reversal. What was meant to bury you has become the evidence that you were chosen all along. Chosen one. Take a breath. Let the weight of everything you've just walked through settle into clarity. The false trials, the cannibal feasts, the paper masks, the theaters, the projections, they were never the end of you. They were the fire that proved you. What they did was disgusting. Yes, it was cowardly. It was cruel. And it was meant to crush you. But here you are, not just alive, not just standing, but crowned with a strength they can't touch. This is where the story slows, where the fury of injustice gives way to the calm of vindication. You don't need to keep replaying the betrayals in your head. You don't need to wonder when the tables will turn. They already have. You've lived through the storm, and you've come out carrying something indestructible, your truth. That truth is your shield now, your confirmation, your quiet authority that cannot be voted away, shouted down, or buried under lies. Soften your shoulders. Feel the peace settle in. The war was never about proving your worth. It was about awakening your awareness of it. And now you know you are not defined by their judgment, their whispers, their shadows. You are defined by the light that carried you through it all. The scars on you are no longer wounds. They are signatures of survival. They don't make you lesser. They make you untouchable. Rest in this, the reversal has already begun. The outrage of the people is not your responsibility.